The woman lying face down in the mud outside Macready's saloon wore tattered skirts that had once been expensive silk, and when Russell Finnegan rolled her over to check if she was still breathing, he caught a glimpse of something that made his heart stop. A gold locket half hidden beneath the grime, engraved with the initials LVR. Russell had seen that locket before, or at least a drawing of it, on wanted posters that did not quite say wanted but rather missing, and those posters had been plastered across every railroad station from Chicago to the territories for the past 3 years. Lucinda Violet Rothschild, heiress to the Rothschild Railroad fortune, disappeared without a trace in the spring of 1873, and here she was in the autumn mud of Mineral Point, Wisconsin, in 1876, drunk as a skunk and smelling like she had not had a proper bath in months. Russell glanced around the darkening street, his instincts sharp from years of working as a ranch hand and occasional bounty hunter. No one else had noticed her yet, most folks already inside for supper or hurrying home before full dark. He made a split-second decision that would change both their lives forever. Scooping the unconscious woman into his arms, he carried her away from the saloon, away from prying eyes, toward the small cabin he rented on the edge of town. She weighed next to nothing, all bones and ragged clothing, and Russell felt a surge of something he could not quite name as he kicked open his cabin door and laid her on his bed. The only bed. He would take the floor tonight, but first he needed to figure out what in blazes Lucinda Rothschild was doing passed out drunk in a backwater Wisconsin town, looking like she had been dragged through hell backward. Russell lit the oil lamp and got a better look at her face. Beneath the dirt and the hollow cheeks, she was beautiful in a way that spoke of good breeding and better times. Her hair, matted and tangled now, had probably once been carefully curled and pinned. Her hands, though rough and reddened, had long fingers that had never known real labor until recently. Everything about her screamed contradiction. A lady fallen on the hardest of times. He fetched water from the pump outside and a clean cloth, then hesitated. It felt wrong to touch her while she was unconscious, even to clean her face, but leaving her like this felt worse. Russell compromised by wiping the worst of the mud from her cheeks and forehead, then covering her with his spare blanket. She did not stir, lost in whatever alcohol-soaked dreams haunted her sleep. Russell sat in his only chair and stared at the woman in his bed, his mind racing. The Rothschild family had offered a substantial reward for information leading to Lucinda's return, no questions asked. That reward could set him up with his own ranch, everything he had been working toward for the past decade. All he had to do was send a telegram in the morning, and the railroad people would come collect their missing heiress. But something stopped him from making that decision right away. Maybe it was the way she had been lying in that mud, clearly not for the first time. Maybe it was the fact that a woman with that kind of money and family connections had been missing for 3 years and had somehow ended up as the town drunk in Mineral Point. People did not disappear like that without a damn good reason. Russell decided to wait, to hear her story first. If she was running from something, he wanted to know what before he potentially sent her back into danger. And if she was running towards something, well, he wanted to know that too. He told himself it was simple curiosity, but even then, looking at her face in the lamplight, he knew he was lying to himself. She woke near dawn, and Russell was ready for it. He had dozed in the chair, one ear always listening, a habit from too many nights on the trail. Her eyes opened slowly, confusion giving way to panic as she realized she was not wherever she had expected to be. "Easy," Russell said, keeping his voice low and calm. "You are safe. You were passed out in the street last night. I brought you here so you would not freeze or get trampled." Lucinda sat up too quickly, swaying with what was probably a vicious headache. Her hand went to her throat, finding the locket, and Russell saw relief flash across her face before she schooled her features into something harder, more guarded. "Where is here?" Her voice was hoarse, ruined by whiskey and God knew what else, but Russell could still hear the educated Eastern accent underneath. "My cabin. Edge of town. Name is Russell Finnegan." He paused, studying her. "Want to tell me yours, Lucy," she said too quickly. "Lucy Roberts." Russell nodded slowly, letting her keep her lie for now. "Well, Lucy Roberts, you want some coffee? Got some on the stove." She looked at him with obvious suspicion, trying to figure his angle. Russell was used to that look. He was a big man, broad-shouldered and rough from years of outdoor work, with a face that would never be called handsome but was not quite ugly either. His dark hair needed cutting and his jaw needed shaving, but his eyes were honest, and most people eventually saw that. "Why did you help me?" Lucinda asked, still wary. "Because you needed help," Russell said simply. He poured 2 cups of coffee, strong and black, and handed her one. "Drink this. Then you can leave if you want. Or you can tell me why a woman who looks like she used to have everything is drinking herself to death in a Wisconsin mining town." Lucinda took the coffee with shaking hands, wrapped her fingers around the warm cup. Russell saw her weighing her options, calculating risks. Whatever had happened to her these past 3 years, it had taught her to trust no one. "I am not who you think I am," she finally said. "I think you are Lucy Roberts, town drunk, currently sitting in my cabin drinking my coffee," Russell replied evenly. "Unless you are about to tell me different." She searched his face, looking for something. "And if I was someone else, someone people might be looking for, then I would want to know if those people meant you harm or help before I did anything about it." Lucinda laughed, a bitter sound that held no humor. "You are either the kindest man I have ever met or the stupidest." "Been called both," Russell admitted, usually in the same breath. "But I've got good instincts about people, and my instincts say you are running from something bad. So why do not you tell me what that something is, and we will figure out the rest together?" She shook her head. "You do not know me. Why would you help me?" Russell had asked himself the same question for hours during the night. The answer had surprised him. Because everybody deserves someone in their corner, and right now, it looks like you have got nobody. Something in his words cracked her careful facade. Lucinda set down the coffee cup and put her face in her hands, and Russell saw her shoulders shake with silent sobs. He did not move from his chair, giving her space to fall apart without an audience pressing in. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but dry. She had cried herself out somewhere years ago, Russell figured. These were just the dregs. "My name is Lucinda Rothschild," she said quietly. "And I have been hiding in plain sight for 3 years because the man I was supposed to marry tried to kill me." Russell had expected something bad, but the bald statement still hit him like a fist. The railroad family," Lucinda confirmed. "My father built an empire, and when he died, he left it all to me. I was 20 years old and suddenly one of the richest women in America. Every fortune hunter in the country wanted to marry me." She laughed that bitter laugh again. "I chose the wrong one." "What was his name?" "Marcus Weatherly. He was charming, educated, from a good Boston family. My mother approved. Everyone approved." Lucinda picked up the coffee again, took a sip. "We were engaged for 6 months before I overheard him talking to his brother. He was planning to marry me, then arrange an accident. With me dead and him as my widower, he would inherit everything." Russell felt cold fury settle in his gut. "You ran." "I ran," Lucinda agreed. "The night before the wedding. I took what jewelry I could carry and disappeared. I sold the pieces one by one, kept moving west, kept changing my name. And I drank because when I was drunk, I did not have to think about what I had lost or who I used to be. Your family does not know. They think you are kidnapped or dead. If I contact them, Marcus will know. He has people watching them, watching the banks, watching everything. I am only safe as long as I am nobody." She met Russell's eyes. "So now you know. There is a reward out for information about me. You could collect it, be set for life, and send you back to a man who wants you dead," Russell said flatly. "Not happening. You do not owe me anything." "No," Russell agreed, "but I do owe myself the ability to sleep at night. And I would not sleep knowing I sent a woman back to her murderer for money." He leaned forward. "Listen, Lucinda, Lucy, whatever you want to be called, you cannot keep living like this. You are killing yourself with whiskey. Better than letting Marcus do it." "Is it, though?" Russell challenged. "Seems like you are just doing his work for him slower." He saw her flinch and pressed on. "You want to survive, really survive. Then you need to stop drinking, start eating, and figure out a way to actually live instead of just hiding." "Easy for you to say," Lucinda shot back. "You do not have killers hunting you." "No, but I have got nothing else either. No family, no prospects, no real future beyond the next ranch job." Russell stood, paced to the window. Dawn was breaking over Mineral Point, painting the sky gold and pink. "Maybe we help each other. You need someone to keep you safe and sober. I need a reason to stay in one place and build something real." "What are you suggesting?" Russell turned back to face her. "Stay here. Work with me. I have been saving to buy a ranch, got my eye on some land north of here. With 2 people working it, we could make it profitable faster. You would have a place to hide in plain sight, and I would have a partner." "You are insane," Lucinda said, but Russell could see the hope kindling in her eyes despite herself. "Probably," he admitted, "but I am also serious. And I think you are desperate enough to consider it." She was quiet for a long moment, studying him. "Why would you do this? Really?" Russell considered lying, giving her some noble reason about justice or decency, but something about this woman deserved the truth. "Because I am tired of being alone. Because I look at you and see someone worth saving, even if you do not see it yourself. And because I think maybe you are the reason I have been stuck in this town for the past 6 months, instead of moving on like I usually do." "That is ridiculous." "You did not even know I existed until last night." "Did not know your name," Russell corrected, "but I have seen you around town, noticed you, wondered about your story." He shrugged, feeling his neck heat with embarrassment. "So maybe part of this is selfish. Maybe I have been looking for an excuse to talk to you, and last night gave me one." Lucinda stared at him like he had grown a second head. "You have been interested in me, while I have been drinking myself stupid every night." "Saw past the drinking," Russell said simply. "Saw someone hurting, someone lost, made me want to help. You are either a saint or a fool. Keep saying that. Still have not figured out which." Despite everything, Lucinda smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real, and Russell felt something warm unfurl in his chest at the sight of it. "If I stay," she said slowly, "there are rules. No drinking, I assume." "No drinking," Russell confirmed. "And you work. I do not want a guest or a charity case. I want a partner. I do not know anything about ranching. You will learn. You are smart, I can tell that much." Lucinda nodded slowly. "And what about when people ask questions? About who I am, where I came from? You are Lucy Roberts, widow from back east, come west to start over. I knew your late husband, offered you work out of respect for him." Russell had been thinking about this all night. "It is not uncommon. People come to Wisconsin to start fresh all the time. No one will question it too hard. And us, what are we supposed to be? Business partners? Neighbors? Whatever you are comfortable with." Russell held her gaze. "I am not expecting anything from you except honest work, Lucinda. This is not some scheme to get a wife or a bedmate. This is me offering you a chance to live again, really live. What you make of that chance is up to you." Lucinda was quiet for so long that Russell thought he had pushed too hard, asked too much. Then she set down her coffee cup and walked to where he stood by the window. Up close, he could see the faint freckles across her nose, the green flecks in her hazel eyes. She was taller than he had realized, her eyes nearly level with his own. "If I do this," she said quietly, "if I stop drinking and start working and try to live again, I need you to promise me something. Name it. If Marcus finds me, if his people come, you get out. You do not try to be a hero, you do not fight for me, you just go and save yourself." "Cannot promise that," Russell said immediately. "Then we have no deal." Lucinda's voice was firm. "I will not have your death on my conscience. I have already destroyed my own life. I will not destroy yours too." Russell studied her face, saw the steel beneath the damage. This was not a woman who would back down easily, even broken as she was. He respected that, even as it frustrated him. "How about this?" he said. "If trouble comes, we face it together. We plan, we think, we are smart about it. But I do not abandon you and you do not sacrifice yourself. We both survive, or we both go down fighting. That is not what I asked for." "It is the best you are going to get," Russell said. "I do not run from trouble, Lucinda, especially not when someone I care about is in danger." "You do not even know me. How can you care about me?" "Do not know," Russell admitted. "But I do. Have from the moment I saw you lying in that mud and felt something in my chest crack open. Maybe it is crazy, probably is, but that is the truth of it and I am not going to pretend otherwise." Lucinda looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "You really mean that? Every word?" She took a shaky breath. "All right, we do this together. Partners." "Partners," Russell agreed and held out his hand. Lucinda shook it, her grip firm despite the tremors. "When do we start?" "Right now. First thing, we get you cleaned up and fed. Then we go see about that land I have been eyeing." Russell smiled at her. "Welcome to your new life, Lucy Roberts. The first week was hell." Lucinda had not realized how dependent she had become on alcohol until she stopped drinking, and the withdrawal hit her like a stampede. She shook, sweated through Russell's spare shirts, could not keep food down. Russell sat with her through all of it, held her hair when she vomited, brought her water and broth, talked to her when the shaking got so bad she thought she might die from it. "Probably feels like dying," Russell said one night when she was curled in his bed, wrapped in every blanket he owned and still shivering. "But you are not going to. You are stronger than the drink." "You do not know that," Lucinda gasped out. "Yes, I do. You survived 3 years on the run from a killer. You can survive this." She wanted to argue, but another wave of nausea hit her, and arguing took more energy than she had. Russell was there with the basin, patient and steady as a rock. When the wave passed, she collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "You could have just turned me in, collected the reward, been done with me." "Because you are worth more than reward money," Russell said simply. He wrung out a cloth in cool water, laid it across her forehead. "Because I meant what I said about being partners. And partners do not abandon each other when things get hard. Even when one partner is a complete mess, especially then." Lucinda felt tears prick her eyes. She had not cried in front of anyone in years, had learned to bury all her emotions deep where they could not be used against her. But something about Russell's steady kindness was breaking down all her careful walls, and she was not sure if that was terrifying or wonderful. "I do not deserve this," she said. "Do not deserve you." "Good thing it is not about deserving," Russell replied. "It is about choosing. I choose to help you. You choose to let me. That is all the deserving we need." By the end of the second week, the worst of the physical symptoms had passed. Lucinda was still weak, still shaky, but she could keep down solid food and sleep without nightmares clawing her awake. Russell had been sleeping on the floor the entire time, refusing to let her give up the bed even though she had protested. "You need rest to heal," he had said firmly. "I am fine on the floor, slept in worse places plenty of times." Now, with her mind clearer than it had been in years, Lucinda sat at Russell's small table and really looked at the cabin. It was tiny, barely big enough for one person, let alone two. But it was clean and well kept, everything in its place. A man's space, practical and unadorned but comfortable in its simplicity. "Tell me about this land you want to buy," she said when Russell came in from checking his horse. Russell hung his hat on the peg by the door, poured himself coffee. "About 200 acres north along the Pecatonica River. Good water, good grazing. There is an old cabin on it that needs work, but it is bigger than this place. Barns half fallen, but the bones are good. Owner wants $300 for it. How much do you have saved?" "About 200. Been working extra jobs, saving every penny." Russell sat across from her. "Figure I need another 6 months to get the rest, plus extra for supplies and livestock." Lucinda bit her lip, thinking. She still had one piece of jewelry left, a diamond brooch she had been saving as absolute emergency funds. It would fetch at least $200, maybe more. But selling it meant taking a risk, meant someone might recognize the piece and connect it back to her. "What if I could get the rest of the money?" she asked carefully. Russell frowned. "How? I have something I could sell, but it is risky. The locket. No, I will never sell that. It was my mother's." Lucinda pulled the brooch from where she had sewn it into her dress hem. "This. It is worth easily 200, maybe 3 if we find the right buyer." Russell's eyes widened. "That is from your old life." "Yes, and selling it might leave a trail. But if we are careful, if we go to a big enough city where one more jewelry sale would not stand out." She trailed off, watching his face. "It is a risk, I know that, but it would get us the land now, and once we are on it, I am even harder to find." "Why would you do this? Why invest your last valuable thing in a ranch with me?" Lucinda met his eyes steadily. "Because you invested everything in saving me when you could have sold me out. Because I want to be partners for real, not just someone you are helping out of pity. And because I think maybe you are right. Maybe it is time I actually lived again instead of just hiding." Russell was quiet, turning the brooch over in his hands. The diamonds caught the light, throwing tiny rainbows across the rough wooden table. "We would have to go to Chicago or Milwaukee, somewhere big, and we would have to be smart about it. I have been hiding for 3 years. I know how to be careful." "All right," Russell decided. "We go to Milwaukee, sell the brooch, buy the land. But once we do this, Lucinda, you are committed, you are putting down roots." "I know." And she did with a clarity that startled her. For 3 years she had been running, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. But looking at Russell, at this rough cowboy who had saved her for no reason except kindness, she felt something she had not felt since the night she ran. Hope. They took the train to Milwaukee a week later. Lucinda in a clean dress Russell had bought from the general store, her hair washed and braided. She still looked thin and worn, but no longer like a woman who had been sleeping in the streets. Russell wore his best shirt and jacket, looking almost respectable. On the train, Lucinda found herself studying Russell's profile as he watched the Wisconsin countryside roll past. He was not a handsome man in the classical sense, but there was something appealing about his face. Honest, her mother would have called it. A face that did not know how to lie. His hands, resting on his knees, were calloused from hard work, the hands of a man who earned his living by the sweat of his brow. Everything about him was the opposite of Marcus. Where Marcus had been smooth and polished, Russell was rough-hewn. Where Marcus had been charming with words, Russell was quiet but sincere. Where Marcus had smiled easily and meant none of it, Russell rarely smiled but meant every expression that crossed his face. "You are staring," Russell said without looking away from the window. Lucinda felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Sorry, I was just thinking. About how different you are from the man I almost married." Now Russell did turn to look at her. "Different good or different bad?" "Different good," Lucinda said softly. "Very good. Marcus never did anything without calculating the benefit to himself. You do not seem to calculate at all, you just do what is right." Russell shrugged, looking uncomfortable with the praise. "Not sure about that. I am plenty selfish. Wanting you as a partner is selfish. Wanting the ranch is selfish. Wanting to wake up every morning and see your face across the breakfast table is definitely selfish." Lucinda's breath caught. "Is that what you want?" "Yes," Russell said simply, "but I know you are not ready for that. Maybe never will be, and that is fine. I will take whatever partnership you are willing to give." "You deserve someone who can give you everything," Lucinda said. "Someone who is not broken and hunted and terrified." "Maybe I do not want everything. Maybe I just want you." Russell held her gaze. "But that is my problem, not yours. You do not owe me anything, Lucinda. Not gratitude, not affection, nothing. I am helping you because I want to, because it is the right thing to do. Whatever else happens or does not happen, that is enough." Lucinda wanted to tell him that it was not enough, that he deserved so much more than she could give. But the words stuck in her throat, tangled up with all the feelings she had been trying not to acknowledge. Feelings that whispered maybe. Feelings that suggested she was not as broken as she thought. Feelings that said this man might be worth the risk of hoping again. Milwaukee was huge and bustling, nothing like quiet Mineral Point. Lucinda felt exposed walking the crowded streets, certain that every face in the crowd was watching her, recognizing her. But Russell stayed close, his presence solid and reassuring, and no one gave them a second glance. They found a reputable jeweler on Wisconsin Avenue, a well-established shop with a good reputation. Russell had asked around before they came, wanted to make sure they were not walking into a trap or dealing with someone who would cheat them. The jeweler, an older man with spectacles and careful hands, examined the brooch with interest. "This is fine work. European, I would guess. Where did you acquire it?" "It was my mother's," Lucinda said, which was not quite a lie. The brooch had belonged to her mother before she had given it to Lucinda on her 18th birthday. "She passed, and I need the money for a new start." The jeweler nodded, asking no more questions. People came west to escape all sorts of pasts, and he had learned not to pry. "I can offer you $250. Russell started to negotiate, but Lucinda touched his arm, shook her head. "That is fair. We accept." The transaction was quick and professional. The jeweler counted out the money in clean bills, and Lucinda felt a strange sense of both loss and liberation as she watched the brooch disappear into his safe. That was the last piece of her old life, the last connection to Lucinda Rothschild, except for the locket she would never sell. Now she was truly Lucy Roberts, starting fresh. They caught the evening train back to Mineral Point, Lucinda exhausted from the stress of the city. She fell asleep on Russell's shoulder, too tired to maintain propriety. When she woke, it was full dark, and Russell had his arm around her shoulders, holding her steady against the swaying of the train. "Sorry," she mumbled, starting to pull away. "Do not be," Russell said. "You can sleep. We have another hour before our stop." Lucinda let herself relax back against him, let herself have this moment of safety and warmth. Outside the window, Wisconsin darkness rolled past, punctuated by occasional lights from farmhouses. Somewhere out there was her future, a ranch by the river, a new life waiting to be built. "Russell," she said quietly, Yeah, thank you for everything, she felt rather than saw him smile. You are welcome. Now sleep. Tomorrow we buy ourselves a ranch. The land was everything Russell had promised and more. The Pecatonica River ran silver and clear through the property, lined with cottonwoods and willows. The cabin was bigger than his rental in town, with 2 rooms and a loft, and while it needed work, the structure was sound. The barn would need rebuilding, but the foundation was good. Lucinda stood in the middle of what would be their land, turning slowly to take it all in. She had grown up with money, with mansions and servants and every luxury imaginable. But this rough Wisconsin farmland felt more valuable than anything she had ever owned, because she had bought it with her own sacrifice, would build it with her own hands. What do you think? Russell asked, watching her face. I think it is perfect, Lucinda said, and meant it. I think it is home. They moved in 2 weeks later, after spending their remaining money on basic supplies and 2 horses. The cabin was sparse, furnished with the bare minimum, but it was theirs. Russell took the loft, giving Lucinda the downstairs bedroom, and they fell into a routine of work that left them both exhausted every night. Russell taught Lucinda everything he knew about ranching, and she proved to be a quick study. She learned to mend fences, tend horses, split wood. Her soft hands blistered and calloused. Her pale skin darkened from hours in the sun. Her thin frame filled out with regular meals and hard work. And slowly, gradually, she stopped looking over her shoulder quite so often. The nightmares still came, though. Lucinda would wake gasping, dreaming of Marcus's hands around her throat, or of railroad men dragging her back east in chains. On the worst nights, Russell would hear her crying and come down from the loft, sit with her until the fear passed. Tell me something good, she whispered one night, still shaking from a particularly vivid nightmare. Tell me something real and good so I know I am not still dreaming. Russell thought for a moment, then said, Remember that colt we saw today, the one down at Thompson's place? The chestnut one? Yes. I am going to buy him. He has got good lines, good temperament. We will raise him up and he will be the start of our herd. In 5 years we will have a dozen horses from his line. In 10, we will be known across Wisconsin for the quality of our stock. Lucinda closed her eyes, let the image wash over her. A future. A real future, not just day-to-day survival. Tell me more. We will fix up the barn next spring, paint it red. We will get chickens, maybe some pigs, plant a vegetable garden. You will learn to make the best damn apple pie in the county, and I will pretend to be surprised every time even though I already know you can do anything you set your mind to. I have never baked a pie in my life. You will learn. You learn everything else. Russell's voice was soft in the darkness. And when winters get hard, we will sit by the fire and read books and play cards and tell stories. And we will be happy, Lucinda. We will build something real and good, and we will be happy. Lucinda opened her eyes, found Russell's face in the dim light. Do you really believe that we can have that? Yes, Russell said firmly. I believe it with everything in me, and someday you will believe it too. She wanted to kiss him then, wanted it with a fierceness that shocked her. But she was not ready, not yet, so instead she took his hand and held it. Stay until I fall asleep. As long as you need, Russell promised. Winter came early that year, snow falling in thick white curtains by mid-November. Russell and Lucinda worked frantically to prepare, sealing cracks in the cabin, laying in supplies, cutting enough wood to last until spring. They moved through the work like a team, anticipating each other's needs, falling into an easy synchronization that felt natural as breathing. On the first truly cold night, Russell came down from the loft to bank the fire and found Lucinda sitting at the table, wrapped in a quilt, writing in a journal by lamplight. Cannot sleep, he asked. Too much on my mind. Lucinda set down her pen. I have been thinking about what happens when spring comes, about planting that garden you promised, buying that colt, about building something permanent, having second thoughts. No, the opposite, actually. Lucinda pulled the quilt tighter around her shoulders. I am thinking about how much I want this. How much I want this life, this place, this partnership. And that terrifies me because everything I ever wanted before got taken away. Russell sat across from her, his expression serious. I cannot promise you nothing bad will ever happen. Cannot promise Marcus will never find you, or that we will not face hard times. But I can promise you that whatever comes, we face it together. And I can promise that I will fight like hell to protect what we are building here. I know you will, Lucinda said softly. And that is part of what scares me. I do not want you hurt because of me. Little late for that. I am already in too deep to back out now. Russell smiled faintly. Besides, getting hurt occasionally is part of living. You cannot protect yourself from everything by not caring about anything. Is that what you think I am doing? I think you are trying, Russell said gently. I think you are holding back because you are afraid, and I understand that, Lucinda. I do. But at some point, you are going to have to decide whether living scared is really living at all. His words hit harder than he probably meant them to. Lucinda looked down at her hands, at the calluses and scars that marked her new life. I am not the woman I used to be, that Lucinda Rothschild who wore silk dresses and planned society weddings. She is dead. I killed her to survive. Maybe you did not kill her, Russell suggested. Maybe you just stripped away all the unnecessary parts to find out who you really are underneath. And maybe who you really are is stronger and better than who you thought you had to be. Lucinda looked up at him, this rough Wisconsin cowboy who saw her more clearly than anyone ever had. You have a lot of faith in someone you have only known a few months. I know enough. I know you did not have to work as hard as you do, but you work anyway. I know you could have taken the easy way out a dozen times, but you chose the hard path because it was the right one. I know you wake up scared every morning, but you get up and face the day anyway. That is not weakness, Lucinda. That is strength. She felt tears burn her eyes. I wish I could see myself the way you see me. Someday you will, Russell said. I will keep telling you until you believe it. The winter was long and cold, but the cabin stayed warm and neither of them went hungry. They passed the evenings playing cards, reading aloud from the few books Russell owned, talking about their plans for spring. Lucinda taught Russell to play chess, using a set they fashioned from carved wood and buttons. Russell taught Lucinda to shoot, taking her out on clear days to practice on tin cans lined up on fence posts. Why am I learning this? Lucinda asked after missing her 5th shot in a row. Because you should know how to defend yourself. Because if trouble comes and I am not around, I want to know you can take care of yourself. Russell adjusted her stance, his hands on her shoulders. Try again. Breathe out slow and squeeze the trigger, do not pull it. Lucinda tried again, and this time the can went flying. She looked at Russell in delight. I hit it, told you that you could. Russell grinned, and Lucinda realized it was the first time she had seen him truly smile. It transformed his whole face, made him almost handsome. Now do it 4 more times. By the end of winter, Lucinda could hit 5 out of 6 shots, and Russell declared her good enough. Hope you never need it, he said as they walked back to the cabin through melting snow. But if you do, you will be ready. Spring came late but glorious, the river swelling with snowmelt, the land greening almost overnight. Russell bought the chestnut colt from Thompson, and Lucinda spent hours working with the young horse, gentling him, earning his trust. She had never worked with horses before, but she discovered she had a talent for it, a patience and intuition that served her well. You are good with him, Russell observed one afternoon, watching her work the colt on a lead line. "I like horses better than people," Lucinda said. "They are honest. They do not pretend to be something they are not." "Present company included?" Russell asked, a hint of hurt in his voice. Lucinda stopped, realized what she had said. "No, not you. You are honest too, maybe the only honest person I know." Russell relaxed slightly. "Just checking. Cannot always tell what you are thinking. That is probably a good thing. My thoughts are not always pleasant company." "I do not know. I like your thoughts just fine when you share them." Russell leaned against the fence. "You have got a good mind, Lucinda, smart and sharp. Wish you would trust me with what is going on in there more often." Lucinda considered this as she guided the colt through another circle. "I have spent 3 years keeping everything locked down, not trusting anyone with anything real. It is hard to unlearn that, even with you. I know. Just saying I am here when you are ready." That evening, after supper, Lucinda made a decision. She sat across from Russell at their small table and said, "I want to tell you about my mother. My real mother, not the story I told the jeweler." Russell set down his coffee cup, giving her his full attention. Her name was Lucinda Rothschild. She was from Boston, old money, married my father when she was 19. Everyone said it was a good match, 2 powerful families joining together. Lucinda smiled faintly at the memory. "But my mother told me once that she married my father because he made her laugh, because he was kind to servants, because he treated her like a person, not a possession. Sounds like a good man. He was. He died when I was 15, and my mother never really recovered. She kept running the railroad because she did not know what else to do, but her heart was not in it. She died 5 years later, and I think part of her was relieved to go." Lucinda touched the locket at her throat. "Before she died, she told me not to marry for money or duty. She said to find someone who made me feel safe and seen. Someone who would fight for me, not for what I represented." "What made you choose Marcus then?" "Fear," Lucinda admitted. "I was 20 years old, suddenly responsible for a massive business empire, and everyone wanted a piece of it. Marcus seemed safe, respectable. I thought if I married someone my mother had approved of before she died, I would be honoring her wishes." She laughed bitterly. "Instead, I nearly got myself killed. You could not have known." "I should have. The signs were there. The way he was always calculating, always positioning himself. The way he smiled at me but never really saw me. But I was scared and alone, and I ignored all of it because I wanted to believe someone actually wanted me for me, not my money." Russell reached across the table, took her hand. "I want you, for the record." "I know," Lucinda said softly. "That is what makes this so terrifying. You are everything my mother told me to look for, and I do not know if I am brave enough to reach for it." "No rush," Russell said, though Lucinda could see the hope in his eyes. "I am not going anywhere." They planted the garden together in late April, Lucinda learning the difference between vegetables and weeds, Russell patient with her mistakes. They built the new chicken coop, adding 6 hens that Lucinda named after the flowers in her mother's Boston garden. They fixed the barn roof, painted it red just like Russell had promised. And slowly, so slowly that Lucinda almost did not notice it happening, the nightmares came less frequently. She found herself laughing more, relaxing into the rhythm of ranch life. She caught herself looking forward to mornings, to sharing coffee with Russell before starting the day's work. She started planning beyond the next season, thinking in terms of years instead of weeks. She also started noticing things about Russell that had nothing to do with partnership and everything to do with the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he swung an axe. The way his hair curled slightly when it got too long. The way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was amused. The way he looked at her sometimes, when he thought she was not paying attention, with such open affection that it made her chest ache. They were in town buying supplies one Saturday in June when Lucinda saw the poster. It was weathered and faded, tacked to the wall outside the general store, but the drawing was still clear enough to make her blood run cold. Her own face stared back at her, younger and softer, but unmistakably her. The reward had gone up. $5,000 now for information leading to her return. Russell saw it the same moment she did. He casually stepped between Lucinda and the poster, blocking the view of anyone else on the street. "Keep walking," he murmured. "Nice and easy." Lucinda forced herself to move, to keep her expression neutral even though her heart was trying to beat out of her chest. They finished loading their supplies, and Russell drove the wagon out of town at a normal pace, not hurrying even though every instinct screamed at them to run. Once they were well clear of Mineral Point, Russell pulled the wagon off the road and turned to face Lucinda. "Are you all right?" "They raised the reward," Lucinda said numbly. "Marcus must be getting desperate or more suspicious, or both." "Does not change anything," Russell said firmly. "You are still Lucy Roberts. That poster is old and you look different now. Healthier, tanned from outdoor work, dressed like a rancher's wife instead of a society lady. No one is going to connect that drawing to you. You do not know that. I know that we have been in Mineral Point for nearly a year, and no one has questioned your story. I know that we are careful and smart. And I know that we are not giving up the life we have built just because some old poster showed up." Lucinda wanted to believe him, but the fear had its hooks in her now. What if someone recognizes me? What if they tell Marcus where I am? "Then we deal with it," Russell said. "Together, remember. That was the deal. Russell, if he comes, if his men come, they will not just take me. They will kill you to cover their tracks. You are the only one who knows the truth. So we make sure more people know the truth. We tell people we trust, leave letters with lawyers, make it so that if something happens to either of us, the whole story comes out." Russell took her shoulders, made her look at him. "We are not helpless, Lucinda. We are not victims. And I will be damned if I let some Eastern coward take away what we have built." Lucinda searched his face, saw the determination there, the protective fury. And something in her chest cracked open, all the feelings she had been holding back spilling out. "I love you," she whispered. "God help me, I love you, and that terrifies me more than any of this." Russell went very still. "Say that again. I love you." "I think I have for months now, but I was too scared to admit it. Too scared of losing something else I care about." Lucinda felt tears spill down her cheeks. "But seeing that poster, realizing that Marcus might find me and I might lose you anyway, I cannot keep pretending I do not feel this. I love you, Russell Finnegan, and I do not know what to do with that." Russell pulled her into his arms, held her tight against his chest. "You do not have to do anything except let yourself feel it. Let yourself have this. I have loved you since the night I pulled you out of that mud, and I will keep loving you whether Marcus comes or not. You are mine, Lucinda Rothschild, and I am yours, and that is all that matters." Lucinda clung to him, let herself cry against his shirt, let herself have this moment of complete vulnerability. When she finally pulled back, Russell cupped her face in his calloused hands and kissed her, gentle and thorough, and Lucinda felt the last of her walls crumble to dust. "Marry me," Russell said when they broke apart. "Not because it is safe or practical, but because I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Because I want to build a family with you, grow old with you. Because I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." "Yes," Lucinda said without hesitation. "Yes, I will marry you, but Russell, you need to understand that marrying me means taking on all my problems. It means you are in danger as long as Marcus is looking for me. I am already in danger. Been in danger since I chose to help you instead of turning you in. Might as well make it official." Russell smiled, that rare genuine smile that lit up his whole face. "Besides, I meant what I said. You are mine now, and I protect what is mine." They were married a week later by the circuit judge, with the Thompson family as witnesses. Lucinda wore a simple blue dress she had sewn herself, and Russell wore his best suit, brushed and pressed for the occasion. The ceremony was brief and practical, but when Russell slipped a thin gold band on her finger, Lucinda felt the weight of it like a promise. That night, in the cabin that was now truly their home, Russell carried Lucinda over the threshold and up to the loft that had been his alone. "You are sure about this?" he asked, setting her down gently. "We can take our time if you need it." "I am sure," Lucinda said, and meant it. She had been sure from the moment she admitted she loved him, maybe even before. "I want this. I want you. I want all of it." Russell kissed her then, deep and claiming, and Lucinda surrendered to it completely. After 3 years of running, of hiding, of being afraid to want anything, she finally let herself have this moment of pure happiness. She let Russell undress her slowly, let him worship every inch of her skin like she was precious, let herself do the same to him. And when he finally made her his completely, she felt something that had been broken inside her begin to heal. Afterward, lying tangled together in the summer heat, Lucinda traced patterns on Russell's chest and said, "I never thought I could have this. A normal life, love, happiness. I thought I had used up all my chances." "Good thing life does not work that way," Russell murmured, his hand moving lazily through her hair. "Good thing you get as many chances as you are willing to take." "Thank you," Lucinda said softly, "for giving me this chance, for seeing something worth saving when I could not see it myself." "Always," Russell promised. "Always and forever Lucy Finnegan, Lucy Finnegan." She tested the name in her mind and found she liked it. Lucinda Rothschild was dead and good riddance. Lucy Finnegan was a rancher's wife, a woman who knew how to mend fences and train horses and shoot tin cans off fence posts. Lucy Finnegan had calloused hands and sun-browned skin, and a husband who loved her for exactly who she was. The summer passed in a golden haze of work and love. The garden flourished. The horses thrived. Lucinda found she was good at running the business side of the ranch, handling sales and negotiations with an instinct born of growing up in the railroad business. Russell joked that he had married himself a secret weapon, and Lucinda laughed and told him he had no idea how true that was. They made love in the loft at night, in the barn on lazy Sunday afternoons, once memorably in the river on a hot August day when they were supposed to be fishing. Russell was an attentive and generous lover, always making sure Lucinda was satisfied before taking his own pleasure. And Lucinda discovered that she liked the physical side of marriage, liked the way Russell could make her forget everything except the feeling of his hands on her skin, his body moving with hers. In September, Lucinda realized she had missed her monthly courses. At first she thought it was stress or the physical work, but when it happened a second time she knew. She was pregnant. She told Russell on a cool autumn evening after supper. "I have news," she said, trying to keep her voice casual even though her heart was racing. "I am going to have a baby." Russell dropped the dish he was washing. It clattered into the basin, somehow not breaking. "You are sure?" "As sure as I can be. 2 months along, I think." Russell crossed the kitchen in 2 strides, pulled her into his arms, and then set her down carefully like she might break. "A baby. We are having a baby." He looked stunned and thrilled and terrified all at once. "Are you happy about this?" "I think so," Lucinda said honestly. "I am scared too. Bringing a child into the world when Marcus might still find me when we are not completely safe. But Russell, I want this. I want your child. I want to build a family with you." "Then that is what we will do," Russell said firmly. He knelt down, pressed a kiss to her still flat stomach. "Hello in there, little one. You are going to have the best mother in the world, and I promise to be the best father I can be. We will keep you safe and loved no matter what." Lucinda felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry at the smallest things lately, and now she knew why. "I love you so much." "Love you too, both of you." Russell stood, pulled her close. "We are going to need a bigger cabin and a cradle. And about 1,000 other things I have never thought about before." "We have time," Lucinda said. 7 months or so. We will figure it out together." They spent the winter preparing for the baby. Russell built a cradle from oak wood, sanding it smooth and carving little horses into the headboard. Lucinda sewed tiny clothes from soft flannel, marveling at how small the sleeves were. They added a room onto the cabin, expanding it from 2 rooms to 3, giving the baby a proper nursery. The pregnancy was harder than Lucinda had expected. She was sick most mornings, exhausted all the time, and her body ached in new and creative ways. But Russell was endlessly patient, taking on extra work so she could rest, bringing her crackers and tea when the nausea was bad, rubbing her swollen feet in the evenings. "I look like a whale," Lucinda complained one evening in late winter, staring at her swollen belly in dismay. "You look beautiful," Russell said sincerely. "You are growing our child. That is the most beautiful thing in the world. You have to say that. You are the one who did this to me." Russell grinned. "As I recall, you were an enthusiastic participant." Despite herself, Lucinda laughed. "Fair point." The baby came in early April, on a rainy spring morning. Lucinda's labor was long and difficult, attended by the midwife from town and Russell, who refused to leave her side even when the midwife suggested he might be more comfortable elsewhere. "She is my wife," Russell said firmly, holding Lucinda's hand as another contraction hit. "I am staying." Lucinda was grateful for his presence, for his steady voice talking her through each wave of pain. When she was sure she could not take any more, the midwife told her to push, and Lucinda bore down with all her remaining strength. The baby was born as the sun broke through the rain clouds, a boy with Russell's dark hair and Lucinda's hazel eyes. He came into the world screaming lustily, and Russell cried as he cut the cord as the midwife placed their son in Lucinda's arms. "He is perfect," Lucinda whispered, staring at the tiny face. "Russell, we made a perfect human being." "You made a perfect human being," Russell corrected, kissing her sweaty forehead. "I just helped. What should we name him?" Lucinda had been thinking about this for months. "Richard," she said. "After my father, Richard Thomas Finnegan." "Richard," Russell repeated, testing it out. He touched the baby's tiny hand, and the infant's fingers wrapped around his thumb with surprising strength. "Hello, Richard. Welcome to the family." The first few months were exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. Richard was a demanding baby, wanting to nurse constantly, sleeping only in short bursts. Lucinda was overwhelmed and sleep-deprived, but also happier than she had ever been. This was her family, her life, everything she had thought she could never have. Russell was an amazing father, getting up for the night feedings even though he had to work in the morning, changing diapers without complaint, walking the floor with Richard when he was fussy. Watching him with their son made Lucinda fall in love with him all over again. "You are a natural at this," she told him one evening, watching him rock Richard to sleep. "I have a good teacher," Russell replied, "and a good partner. We make a pretty great team, Lucy Finnegan." Summer came, and with it trouble. Lucinda was in the garden with Richard sleeping in a basket beside her when she heard horses approaching. Multiple horses, moving fast. Her heart leaped into her throat, and she scooped up the baby, hurried toward the cabin. Russell was in the barn, too far away to reach quickly. 3 men rode into the yard, well-dressed in Eastern suits that looked out of place on a Wisconsin ranch. The man in the lead was tall and blond, with cold blue eyes that Lucinda recognized instantly, despite not having seen them in 4 years. Marcus Weatherly had found her. "Well, well," Marcus said, dismounting. "Lucinda Rothschild, or should I say Lucy Finnegan? Did you really think you could hide from me forever?" Lucinda held Richard tight, back toward the cabin. "How did you find me? That jeweler in Milwaukee." "It took a while, but I eventually tracked down every significant jewelry sale in the Midwest over the past few years. The brooch was distinctive enough that he remembered it. From there, it was just a matter of following the trail to this God-forsaken little ranch." "What do you want, Marcus?" "What I have always wanted. Your fortune, your name, your life." Marcus smiled, and it was like looking at a snake. "Did you really think I would just let you disappear? That I would give up millions of dollars because you decided to play at being a farmer's wife?" "I am not going back with you," Lucinda said firmly, even though she was shaking. "I am not marrying you. I am already married and I have a child. You have no claim on me." "That is where you are wrong," Marcus said. "Your mother's will left everything to you, but it included a clause. If you die unmarried, the fortune goes to charity. But if you die married to me, I inherit. We were legally engaged when you disappeared. Under the law, that engagement still stands. No court would uphold that, maybe not. But it does not matter, because you are not going to be alive to contest it." Marcus drew a pistol from his coat. "I am sorry, Lucinda. I genuinely liked you in my way, but business is business." The gunshot cracked through the afternoon air, but it was not Marcus's gun that fired. Marcus stumbled forward, a red stain spreading across his back, and crashed to his knees. Behind him, Russell stood with a rifle, his face set in hard lines. The 2 men Marcus had brought reached for their guns, but Russell was faster. "Do not," he said coldly, shifting his aim to them. "Drop your weapons and ride out of here, or join your boss in the dirt. Your choice." The men hesitated, calculating their odds. Russell fired a shot into the ground at their horses' feet, making the animals dance nervously. Last chance. They dropped their guns and rode, spurring their horses into a gallop, leaving Marcus bleeding in the dirt. Russell kept his rifle trained on them until they were out of sight, then lowered it and ran to Lucinda. "Are you all right? Is Richard all right?" "We are fine," Lucinda said shakily. "You killed him. Marcus is dead." "Had to," Russell said grimly. "He was going to kill you. I will face whatever consequences come, but I would do it again in a heartbeat." Lucinda looked down at Marcus's body, this man who had haunted her nightmares for 4 years, and felt nothing but relief. "He was going to kill me and take my fortune. He admitted it in front of witnesses. You were defending your family." "Still killed a man," Russell said heavily. "That is not something that sits easy." "No," Lucinda agreed, "but it was necessary. And we will deal with it together, just like everything else." They went to the sheriff that same day, Russell driving the wagon with Marcus's body in the back while Lucinda held Richard. The story came out in full: Lucinda's real identity, Marcus's attempts to kill her for her inheritance, everything. The sheriff listened to it all, his expression growing more incredulous by the minute. "So you are telling me Lucy Finnegan is actually Lucinda Rothschild, the railroad heiress? And this dead fellow tried to kill her for her money?" "That is exactly what I am telling you," Russell said. "And I shot him to protect my wife and son. You can arrest me if you want, but I am not apologizing for it." The sheriff rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "Did anyone else witness this?" "His 2 associates did, but they rode off," Lucinda said. "However, Marcus admitted everything before Russell shot him. He explained his whole plan to me." "Right. And we are just supposed to take your word for that?" "No," Lucinda said calmly. You are supposed to send a telegram to the Rothschild family attorneys in Boston. They will confirm my identity and the fact that Marcus Weatherly was attempting to fraudulently claim my inheritance. They will also confirm that I disappeared because I feared for my life, and that those fears were clearly justified. The sheriff blinked at the sudden steel in her voice, the command that came from years of running a business empire. I will send that telegram. But until we get confirmation, I am going to have to hold your husband. No, Lucinda said firmly. If you hold Russell, you hold me and Richard too. We are a family and we stay together. The sheriff looked at the baby sleeping in Lucinda's arms, at Russell standing protectively close, and sighed. Fine, but you do not leave town until this is sorted. It took 3 days for the telegram response to arrive, and when it did, it changed everything. The Rothschild attorneys confirmed Lucinda's identity and expressed profound relief that she was alive and safe. They confirmed that Marcus Weatherly had been under investigation for fraud and embezzlement related to the Rothschild businesses. And they confirmed that any actions taken to defend Lucinda from Marcus were legally justified under self-defense laws. The sheriff released Russell with an apology, and the case was closed. Marcus was buried in an unmarked grave on the edge of town, unmourned by anyone. But the news of Lucinda's survival and whereabouts spread fast. Within a week, a telegram arrived from the Rothschild attorneys requesting her presence in Boston to discuss her inheritance and the management of her father's business empire. Lucinda read the telegram 3 times, then handed it to Russell. They want me to come back. What do you want to do? Russell asked carefully. I do not know. Lucinda looked around the cabin at the life they had built together. Part of me wants to ignore this, pretend I never received it. But that fortune is mine, Russell. My father built that railroad with his own hands, and he left it to me. I owe it to his memory to at least make sure it is being run properly. So we go to Boston, Russell said simply. We meet with the attorneys, figure out what needs to be done. Then we come home. Just like that, just like that. You are not alone anymore, Lucy. Whatever you need to do, wherever you need to go, we do it together. They took the train to Boston in June, Richard now 3 months old and already showing signs of his father's easygoing temperament. Lucinda felt strange traveling east again, back toward the life she had fled, but Russell's steady presence beside her made it bearable. Boston was both familiar and foreign. The streets Lucinda had walked as a girl seemed narrower somehow, the buildings too close together. The air smelled wrong, full of coal smoke and sea salt instead of Wisconsin farmland. But the Rothschild building still stood tall and proud on State Street, and walking through its doors felt like coming home in a way Lucinda had not expected. The attorneys were a collection of serious older men who had known Lucinda since childhood. They greeted her with genuine warmth, congratulated her on her marriage and son, and then got down to business. Your inheritance is intact and has been well managed in your absence, the senior attorney explained. However, there are decisions that need to be made about the future of the company. You are the sole heir and owner. You can take an active role in management, appoint someone to manage it on your behalf, or sell the company entirely. What about my relatives? Lucinda asked. I have cousins, uncles. Do they not have a claim? Your father's will was very specific. Everything goes to you. However, several of your relatives have been managing various aspects of the business and doing quite well. If you wish to keep them in their positions, that is certainly an option. Lucinda thought about this. She did not want to run a railroad. She wanted to raise horses in Wisconsin with her husband, but she also did not want to abandon her father's legacy or leave good people without employment. I want to set up a trust, she said slowly. Put the business into professional management with oversight from my father's most trusted employees. I will retain ownership, but not day-to-day control. The profits can be reinvested in the company and distributed to employees as bonuses. I want the people who actually do the work to benefit from it. The attorneys looked surprised, then approving. That is a very progressive approach, Mrs. Finnegan. My father believed in taking care of his workers, Lucinda said. I am just continuing his philosophy. Draw up the papers. I will sign whatever needs signing. But then my husband and I are going home to our ranch, and we would appreciate being left in peace. It took 2 weeks to finalize everything, 2 weeks of meetings and paperwork and long legal discussions. But when it was done, Lucinda felt lighter than she had in years. She was no longer running from her past or her fortune. She had faced it, dealt with it on her terms, and was now free to live the life she chose. On their last night in Boston, Russell took Lucinda to a fancy restaurant, the kind of place she had frequented in her old life. They looked out of place among the silk-clad society women and sharp-suited businessmen, Russell in his best suit that was still clearly Western-made, Lucinda in a simple dress she had sewn herself. But they did not care. "How does it feel?" Russell asked over wine. "Being back in your old world." "Strange," Lucinda admitted. "I thought I would miss it more. The luxury, the ease, the social position. But all I can think about is getting back to the ranch, back to our life. No regrets about giving up all this. None." Lucinda reached across the table, took his hand. "I have everything I need. A husband who loves me, a beautiful son, a home that we built together. No amount of money or social standing can compare to that." Russell smiled, that rare, beautiful smile. "You know what the best part is? You are not Lucy Finnegan pretending to be someone else anymore. You are just Lucy Finnegan, exactly who you want to be." "Lucy Rothschild Finnegan," Lucinda corrected. "I think I will keep both names. Honor where I came from while embracing where I am going." "I like that," Russell said. "Though I will probably still just call you Lucy." "I would be disappointed if you did not." They took the train home the next day, eager to get back to Wisconsin and their ranch. Lucinda felt like she could breathe properly again once they crossed into the Midwest, the vast open spaces so different from Boston's cramped streets. And when their cabin finally came into view, she felt tears of relief prick her eyes. "Home," she whispered. "Home," Russell agreed, pulling the wagon to a stop. "And it is going to stay home for as long as we want it to be." The years that followed were good ones, full of hard work and simple joys. The ranch prospered, their horse breeding program becoming known throughout Wisconsin. Richard grew into a sturdy, cheerful toddler who followed Russell everywhere, already fascinated by horses and ranch work. When Richard was 2, Lucinda discovered she was pregnant again. This pregnancy was easier than the first, and in early winter, she delivered twin girls. They named them Eleanor, after Lucinda's mother, and Rose, after Russell's grandmother. The cabin had to be expanded again to accommodate their growing family. Russell built on 2 more bedrooms and a larger kitchen, and the little ranch house began to look like a proper home. Lucinda planted flowers around the porch, and Russell built a swing for the children. Richard grew into a responsible boy who was good with animals and gentle with his younger sisters. Eleanor was quiet and thoughtful, always watching and learning. Rose was bold and adventurous, constantly getting into trouble. They were a handful, but Russell and Lucinda would not have changed a thing. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Russell surprised Lucinda by taking her on a picnic by the river, just the 2 of them while a neighbor watched the children. It was a warm summer evening, the water sparkling in the sunset light. "You ever regret it?" Russell asked as they sat together on a blanket. "Giving up your old life for this?" Not for a single moment, Lucinda said honestly. She leaned against his shoulder, watched the river flow past. That life was not real, Russell. It was all surface and performance, people pretending to care about each other while really only caring about money and position. This life, our life, it is real. The work is real. The love is real. The family is real. I love you, Russell said simply. Just wanted to make sure you knew that. I know. And I love you too. You saved my life in more ways than one, Russell Finnegan. You gave me a reason to stop running and start living. You did the same for me, Russell said. I was just drifting before you, moving from job to job, never staying anywhere long enough to call it home. You gave me roots, purpose, a family, everything I never knew I wanted. They sat together until the stars came out, talking about their plans for the ranch, for the children, for the future. It was not a grand or fancy life, but it was theirs, built from nothing but hard work and love. Years passed, and the children grew. Richard became an expert horseman and started helping his father run the ranch in earnest. The twins were inseparable, Alina handling the business side while Rose managed the training program. When Lucinda was 35, she had one more child, a son they named Theodore who had Russell's dark eyes and her auburn hair. The ranch became one of the most successful in Wisconsin, known for producing quality horses and treating their animals and employees with respect. Lucinda used some of her Rothschild fortune to establish a fund that helped other women fleeing dangerous situations, offering them money and support to start over. She never advertised it, but word spread quietly, and over the years, she helped dozens of women find their way to safety. Russell expanded the ranch operations, buying up neighboring land as it became available, building a small empire of their own. But he never forgot where they started, and every year on the anniversary of the day he found Lucinda in the mud, he took her to Mineral Point and bought her a drink of sarsaparilla at Macready's saloon. Remembering the town drunk, Lucinda would tease. Remembering the day I found the love of my life, Russell would correct. When Lucinda was 40, she received a letter from the Rothschild attorneys informing her that the railroad company she had put in trust was now worth 3 times what it had been when her father died. The employees were prosperous and loyal, and the company was widely respected for its fair labor practices and quality service. Your father would be proud, Russell said, reading over her shoulder. I hope so, Lucinda replied. But I am more interested in what our children will think when they are old enough to understand. I want them to know that money and power are not the measure of a person's worth. Kindness is, integrity is, love is. They know, Russell assured her. You show them every day. Richard married at 22, a local girl named Sarah who was as horse mad as he was. They built a house on the northern edge of the ranch property and started their own family. Alina surprised everyone by announcing she wanted to study law, determined to help people like her mother had been helped. Russell and Lucinda supported her completely, and she left for university in Chicago with their blessing. Rose stayed on the ranch, unable to imagine life anywhere else. She took over the training program entirely, developing techniques that were ahead of their time, gentle and patient methods that produced exceptional horses. She married one of the ranch hands, a quiet man named James who adored her wild spirit. Theodore was the baby of the family and stayed that way even as he grew, charming and spoiled but good-hearted. He talked about seeing the world someday, and Lucinda encouraged him, knowing that he would come home eventually. The ranch had a way of calling people back. When Lucinda was 55 and Russell 57, they sat on the porch of their ranch house watching the sunset. 3 generations of Finnegans were scattered across the property, grandchildren playing in the yard, adult children handling evening chores. The ranch that had started with 2 people and a dream now supported dozens of family members and employees. "We built something good," Russell said, taking Lucinda's hand. "We built something great," Lucinda corrected. "A family, a legacy, a home where people feel safe and loved. All because I found a woman lying drunk in the mud and decided to help her," Lucinda laughed. "Is that really how you want to remember it?" "That is exactly how I want to remember it, because it is the truth, and the truth is always worth preserving." Russell pulled her close, kissed her temple. "I found you at your lowest point, and you let me help you climb back up. Then we climbed together, and we have been climbing ever since." "No more climbing," Lucinda said contentedly. "I think we are exactly where we are supposed to be." "Agreed. Though I reserve the right to surprise you occasionally." "You have been surprising me for 30 years, Russell Finnegan. I do not expect you to stop now." They sat together as the sky turned from gold to purple to deep blue, watching their family, their ranch, their life spread out before them like a blessing. Lucinda thought about the girl she had been, terrified and running, drowning her fears in whiskey and despair. That girl would never have believed this life was possible, but it was possible, it was real, and it was everything Lucinda had never dared to dream. Russell must have sensed her thoughts because he squeezed her hand gently. "No regrets." "Not a single one," Lucinda said. "Only gratitude. For you, for our family, for every single day I get to wake up and live this life." "That is good," Russell said, "because I plan on giving you many more days. We are going to grow old and cranky together, Lucy Finnegan, and we are going to enjoy every moment of it." "That sounds perfect," Lucinda agreed. And it did. After everything she had survived, every hardship and fear and moment of despair, she had found her way home. Not to Boston or the life she was born into, but to this rough Wisconsin ranch, to this honest man who had loved her when she was too broken to love herself, to this family they had built from nothing but hope and hard work. The town drunk had turned out to be a railroad heiress, and the cowboy had kept her secret safe. But more than that, they had become partners, lovers, best friends. They had built an empire not of money and power but of love and family. And that, Lucinda knew as she sat beside her husband watching the stars come out over their land, was worth more than all the railroad fortunes in the world. Their story became something of a legend in Mineral Point, told and retold until the truth blurred into myth. Some versions said Lucinda had been kidnapped. Some said she had amnesia. Some even claimed she had never been drunk at all but was hiding as the town drunk to avoid detection. Russell and Lucinda never corrected any of the stories. They knew the truth, and that was enough. What mattered was not how they started, but how they continued. Year after year, through droughts and harsh winters, through sick livestock and lean times, through the 1,000 small challenges that came with ranching in Wisconsin. They faced it all together, their partnership deepening with every shared struggle and triumph. When Lucinda was 60, she finally wrote down her story, the whole truth of it, and put it in a locked box in the ranch safe. "For our grandchildren," she told Russell. "So they know where they came from. So they understand that people can survive terrible things and still build beautiful lives." "You think they will understand?" Russell asked. "I think they will learn from it. I think they will see that money and status mean nothing compared to love and integrity. And I think they will be proud to come from people who fought for their happiness instead of accepting what they were told they deserved." Russell pulled her into his arms, this woman who had been his partner for over 30 years, who had given him children and grandchildren and a life richer than he had ever imagined. "I am proud of you. Always have been. From the moment I saw you fighting to survive even when you had every reason to give up, you are the strongest person I have ever known. I am only strong because you gave me a reason to be, Lucinda said. You believed in me when I could not believe in myself. You kept my secrets safe, and you kept me safe, and you helped me become someone I could be proud of. We helped each other, Russell corrected. That is what partners do. They celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary, surrounded by their entire extended family. 4 children, 11 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild on the way. The ranch had expanded to over 1,000 acres, employed 30 people, and was known across the Midwest for producing the finest horses in the region. But more than the success, more than the prosperity, Lucinda was proud of the family they had built. Every single one of their children and grandchildren knew the value of hard work and honest dealing. They treated their employees with respect, their animals with kindness, and each other with love. That was the true Finnegan legacy, and it was worth more than all the Rothschild millions. Russell's health started failing when he was 75, his body worn out from decades of hard physical labor. Lucinda nursed him through that final year with the same devotion he had shown her in their early days together, sitting by his bed, holding his hand, telling him stories of their life together. "No regrets," Russell said one evening, his voice weak but certain. "This life, this family, you, Lucinda, it was everything I never knew I needed." "You saved me," Lucinda whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You gave me a life worth living." "We saved each other," Russell said, "and we lived one hell of a life together. Do not cry for me, Lucy. I am going out the luckiest man who ever lived." He died peacefully in his sleep 3 days later, Lucinda beside him holding his hand. She mourned him deeply but without regret, knowing they had made the most of every single day they had been given. Lucinda lived another 10 years after Russell's death, staying on the ranch that had been their shared dream, watching their family continue to grow and thrive. She spent her days with her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, teaching them to ride, telling them stories, passing on the wisdom she and Russell had accumulated over their years together. On her 85th birthday, surrounded by more family than she could easily count, Lucinda Rothschild Finnegan looked around the ranch house and felt complete satisfaction. She had lived long enough to see her family firmly established, the ranch secure for generations to come, and the legacy of kindness and integrity that she and Russell had built flourishing in their descendants. "Tell us the story, Grandma," one of her great-granddaughters asked. "Tell us how you and Grandpa Russell met." Lucinda smiled, remembering that autumn day so long ago when Russell had found her in the mud outside McCready's saloon. "It is a long story," she said, "but I suppose I have time to tell it one more time." And she did, spinning out the tale of the town drunk who turned out to be a railroad heiress, and the cowboy who kept her secret safe. She told them about the hard work of building the ranch, about learning to love again after fear had closed her heart, about choosing to live instead of just survive. She told them about Marcus Weatherly and the danger that had followed her west, and about Russell's courage in protecting her when it mattered most. But most of all, she told them about love. Real love, the kind that grew slowly over time, built on trust and partnership and shared dreams. The kind that survived hardship and celebrated triumph. The kind that lasted a lifetime and beyond. "That is the greatest legacy your grandfather and I could leave you," Lucinda finished. "Not money or land or horses, though those are good things. But the knowledge that real love, true partnership is worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth building a whole life around." Her great-granddaughter leaned against her shoulder. "I hope I find love like that someday." "You will," Lucinda assured her. if you are brave enough to take the chance when it comes, if you are willing to be vulnerable and honest and true. Love like that does not just happen. You have to choose it every single day, and you have to be willing to work for it. But I promise you, it is worth every bit of effort. Lucinda passed away peacefully in her sleep 6 months later, her children and grandchildren all nearby. They buried her next to Russell on a hill overlooking the ranch, under the shade of an old cottonwood tree. The headstone was simple: Lucy Rothschild Finnegan, beloved wife, mother, grandmother. But beneath the dates, they added one more line at her request: she lived, and she had. After years of running and hiding, after drowning her fear in whiskey and giving up on happiness, Lucinda had found her way back to life. She had loved and been loved. She had built something that lasted. She had turned her tragedy into triumph, her despair into hope. The ranch continued for generations, the Finnegan family growing and spreading, but always coming back to that land by the Pecatonica River. They told the story of Russell and Lucinda around dinner tables and campfires, keeping the memory alive of the cowboy who had saved the heiress, and the heiress who had saved him right back, because that was the real truth of their story. It was not about a rescue or a secret kept. It was about two broken people finding each other and choosing to heal together. It was about building something beautiful from the wreckage of the past. It was about love that was patient and kind and strong enough to last through everything life threw at them. It was about choosing life, choosing love, choosing hope when every reason existed to choose despair. And in the end, that choice made all the difference. That choice turned a town drunk into a beloved matriarch, a drifting cowboy into the founder of a dynasty, and a chance meeting in the mud into a love story that would be remembered for generations to come. The ranch stands to this day, still in the Finnegan family, still raising horses, still honoring the legacy that Russell and Lucinda built together. And sometimes, on quiet autumn evenings when the light hits just right, people swear they can see two figures walking hand in hand by the river, a tall cowboy and a determined woman, together still in whatever comes after this life, their love as eternal as the land they claim together.